I'm Stephanie Morris, and today I'm working with Ann Finney of UC Master Gardeners. Today in California Native Plant Pruning, we are going to be looking at pruning a Western Redbud, Cercis occidentalis, during the winter months. The first thing we do before making any pruning cuts is to step back and make an assessment of the shape and structure of the plant we are going to prune. We will look for a general sense of crowding, disease, and other major issues we may want to address. And then we take a step closer at each part of the tree as we dive in and get pruning. One of the first things we do is look for dead and diseased branches. And we also notice that one of these trunks has an infection at the base. So we decided we're going to remove this trunk. We will make some other pruning cuts on this tree to demonstrate different examples of pruning, and then we will return to make the cut on this trunk at the end of this video. One thing we will also do early on is to remove any small stump sprouts or suckers that we don't wish to grow into eventual trunks. A great way to think about pruning a deciduous plant is to look for crowding and crossing branches. So first we're going to look at branches that cross each other. These types of branches will continue to become a problem as the tree grows larger because they will start to rub against each other, causing tissue damage to one or both of the branches. Here we show some examples of different types of crossing branches that we observe in this particular Western Redbud. We will trim off many of the branches that face inward toward the center of the tree. This is so that the tree won't get too dense and crowded in the middle, and there will be plenty of light and air circulation in the middle. These branches also tend to cross with other branches. In general, when we're pruning, we use three different types of tools. Hand shears for small branches that are usually a 1/2 inch or possibly 3/4 of an inch in diameter. Loppers for branches that are over 3/4 inch in diameter. And then a handsaw for branches that are usually over about 2 inches or so in diameter. Most importantly, use whichever tool feels comfortable for you for any pruning cut you make. Now we've done a little bit of pruning, but the tree is still looking pretty crowded. And so the next step is to start looking for branches that are basically just duplicates. And by this I mean branches that are growing the same direction, often parallel to each other, coming from the same area of the tree. So here on this trunk you can see several examples of branches that are all growing up parallel to each other. We step back and take a look and make a decision to trim out one branch and leave the other branch to create a little bit more space in the center of the tree and allow the remaining branches to have enough light to grow well. In this instance, we actually decided to remove both of these branches because, as you can see here, this branch is rubbing against the other trunk. And here we can see some of the rubbing damage that shows up on the trunk of this tree. Here is another example toward the outer edge of the tree of duplicate branches. We stepped back and made a decision which branch to cut and removed one of the branches in this area. Next, we will look for any branches that just look awkward, and we will cut those branches out. In between cuts, we're often stepping back to take a look at the tree and assess what we should do, which branches we should keep, and which branches we should cut. Now that we've done a fair amount of pruning on this tree, it's time to go ahead and take out that middle trunk, the one we had first looked at the beginning and decided that it would go. Taking out this fourth trunk will allow the 3 remaining trunks a lot more space as they grow, so that as they expand, things won't be crowded, and it will look a lot better and a lot more balanced. So we don't immediately start cutting at the bottom. We decide first to take some weight off this trunk. And we do this by lopping off several of the branches up at the mid-range height. This will just allow for less weight on the branch and the trunk as we remove it. Then we make a cut in the middle of the trunk to take off the majority of the weight. And then finally, we start our cuts at the base. As we were sawing the base of this trunk, we realized that the 3 trunks around it were so close together. We needed to make an angled cut so that our saw didn't inadvertently nick some of the existing trunks of this tree that we wish to remain. So you can see here our angled V-shaped cut. And then finally we were able to cut the entire trunk off. Now that the redbud is looking thinned out, it's time for one last look at the tree to double check how balanced it is. One thing we noticed is that when viewing it from different angles, if we were to pull out one branch, we could achieve better balance from the side angle of this tree. We decided though that in this public setting we would not stake this branch for the perfect balance, but let the tree remain as is, since its primary viewpoint from the other direction looks quite balanced, and we know that in time other branches will grow toward this southerly direction. We decide to cut a few more branches near the bottom of the tree to give the tree a little bit better balance from top to bottom. Here is now a view of the tree after we have finished pruning. We probably spent about an hour and a half to 2 hours pruning this tree, this taking into account various decisions and discussions throughout the process. So here is our before photo, and here is our after photo. Thank you again very much to Anne Finney for her assistance pruning this Western Redbud for this video. She invites everyone to come visit the UC Master Garden at Marshall Caudill Park. Here is the website so you can get more information on visiting hours.